Hi everybody, this is Dino Chris from Prehistoric Facts. I'm going to do an extra episode about basically paleontology news. I'll actually get down to the most recent the most recent thing that actually came up into the paleontological news is that it's talking about dinosaurs with lips, and basically they pointed out to Tyrannosaurus Rex. And so what the study was actually trying to do here was actually look at the skull of basically certain dinosaurs, and particularly Tyrannosaurus Rex is actually included. And basically what they were trying to do is actually find evidence that would actually support basically up here, right here in the maxilla, and even in the premaxilla, and even in the mandibles, of whether or not there might be attachment points of basically where lips would actually be. Now, lips are basically basically kind of like small muscles that are actually attached to basically, and to us, it's actually attached to our premaxilla and part of our maxilla. But also in our mandible. But you see, it's basically this. Would this actually going to support this? So basically, they actually thought that with Tyrannosaurus Rex, they thought that basically that the lips would actually cover the teeth, cover at least half or even most of the teeth, both in the lower and upper jaws, and actually would hide the teeth and actually make it look like that the prey is not actually getting to see what the teeth actually look like. And also, it actually makes the idea of that Tyrannosaurus Rex actually has the muscles necessary in the upper and lower jaws to actually lower those lips, to actually show those teeth when it was actually in attack mode. And that would actually give the indication that it actually has those muscles basically right there on the jaws to actually support the idea of lips on certain types of dinosaurs. Now, when I heard about the study, and also I looked at the hypothesis, and basically this is actually it's not really new in terms of paleontology, in terms of basically did dinosaurs really have lips or did they actually not really have lips? They just showed their teeth, and basically that kind of gives them the idea of basically that they actually still held their reptilian features, and also some of those features that would actually kind of evolve into birds, and basically that would actually give the idea that basically that either or could actually have some of those features. But even though when we look at birds and reptiles, basically crocodilians and birds, crocodilians usually don't have lips. And a lot of people actually say, well, we can give them epasis because basically they don't need teeth, they don't need lips. It's because you see their skin is actually kind of attached to the skull, and also the skull is very strong, and basically they don't need lips to actually have like other soft tissue to actually absorb all that pressure that comes with the bite force. And with birds, we don't really find lips with birds. It's basically a beak, and a beak doesn't have lips. All it kind of has is basically, it's a bony type of structure, but it actually has keratin. So basically the beak is made of keratin. Now, some people still say that like some birds do have lips. I'd say that's false, because you see, if you look at birds, you don't see like muscle attachments on their beaks. It's because lips are basically part of muscles, or basically just muscles, soft tissue like muscles. And basically those are mostly found on mammals. Mammals actually have lips, and so that actually and also some amphibians do as well, but even though their lips are kind of not really about muscles, it's actually more about basically kind of like cartilage that is actually left on the skull to actually give a little bit more absorption to some shock. Fish actually do have lips, but basically those are actually kind of attachment points of basically some certain muscles can be, but also it's made of cartilage though too. So basically cartilage would actually take over for that. Now, since dinosaurs are actually kind of in between crocodilians and birds, where does that actually place them in terms of basically of basically of where lips actually have to be. I read this hypothesis. I think there's flaws with this hypothesis. Number one, we actually look at crocodilians and birds. No lips. They don't have they don't have muscles on their jaws and their premaxillas and maxillas, and even in their mandibles. Basically, it's because there is no room for them, and basically that actually kind of makes a point of basically of the teeth. And with dinosaurs with their teeth, if they had lips, I like maybe some of the sauropods did actually have them, but basically it's just that with carnivorous dinosaurs, especially with Tyrannosaurus Rex has the largest teeth out of any predatory dinosaur. And basically, if it had lips, the lips would be in the way of those teeth, and basically that causes more injury, especially on itself, because basically if it bit hard enough and basically the lips got in the way, then basically that actually causes injury, and basically there could be infections, there could actually be blood loss. Not much blood loss, but even though there could be blood loss that would actually occur to actually have infections. And so that and also birds necessarily didn't have lips. It's actually kind of actually the point of basically they're in between those features of crocodilians and birds. I'd say most dinosaurs did not have lips. That's because, you see, we don't find evidence of that. We don't find attachment points, basically, around here. Because if we look at Tyrannosaurus Rex, most meat-eating dinosaurs, we do find holes around the mandible and also in the maxillas and the premaxillas, but I think those are for nerve points, basically where nerves were actually connected to parts of the skin, where basically is that they were probably for absorption of basically kind of like touch, basically, because I think considering that most dinosaurs did actually have those types of things, did actually have that ability to touch, basically on their face, it actually makes a little bit more sense of basically these would probably be for nerve endings, possibly for basically a terming of basically where say where soft tissue could actually be to actually cover part of cover the skull, not necessarily to cover the teeth. Because you see, if there were lips on Tyrannosaurus Rex, I'd still say the lips would be in the way, because considering that these teeth are very formidable, and basically I do not think Tyrannosaurus Rex would actually have lips. But that's just my opinion. The hypothesis may actually go a little further in this. And also, there are some paleontologists that still believe that dinosaurs did actually have lips. I think some of the sauropods probably did actually have lips, considering that they probably did need to cover those teeth, because they didn't really need to have those teeth exposed that much. But there are some that probably didn't need to have lips. Like the Hadrosaurs, they didn't need lips. The Iguanodontids, they probably didn't need lips just because they got a beak, Because I think the theropods most theropods did not have lips. Considering that the theropods are the closest resemblance to birds, these are actually going to probably be a little bit more on the safe side of basically saying they did not have lips. Now, could this be a possibility that they could actually have lips? It's possible. It's still possible. I'd still say there's a lot of flaws with this theory. We still need a lot more evidence to actually support this. Because I'd say if you're actually gonna show support of basically that dinosaurs did actually have lips, especially with theropods, I would say show more evidence. Especially that we would actually we need more proof for this. Is there really muscle attachments on the skull, right here on the maxilla and the premaxilla, and even in the mandibles, basically right here. Right now we don't have that, and also it's basically most of the muscles are actually basically right here in the jaws, and basically right here in the jaws. It's because that's where the focus is actually going to be for most of the dinosaurs in terms of the movement. Now, would dinosaurs actually have more muscle attachments right around here? But you see, in the sinuses, right here, you would actually have pretty much soft tissue that actually covers this, especially skin, because skin would actually cover this, and basically like these sinuses would actually be filled with like soft tissue, basically the tubes that actually that come from the nostrils, and also you have like the other soft tissue that actually determines like the types of scents that is in the air. The odors that are actually in the air, especially with Tyrannosaurus Rex. And so, with that theory, is this. My opinion, I say we need more proof in terms of basically showing dinosaurs with lips. Did they really have them? My opinion is that they didn't, because you see, I would actually say that the theropods didn't have lips. Sauropods probably did have them, but it's a 50-50 shot with that. Stegosaurs, Hadrosaurs, Iguanodontids, I don't think they had them, and I think most theropods did not have them. It's because, you see, it's about the teeth. It's basically if there's room for the teeth to actually for these lips, especially with the lower jaw, because you see the lower jaw would actually have to have like really deep tissue in order to actually hide those teeth, and also that would actually be strong enough to actually make sure that they didn't get injuries from those lips, especially on themselves. Because you see, if those teeth get deep enough in those lips and basically they actually injure themselves, that's a problem. And so I think probably is that they need to fix some of those flaws. Are there any other types of ways that dinosaurs could actually have lips, instead of actually just looking at like these nerve openings that are actually on the skull, and actually just go like, okay, those are probably where lips would be. That's a little bit too far-fetched. We need more evidence. That's what I actually say, is we need more evidence to actually support this. I would say like if there's paleontologists that have read this theory, probably would actually maybe look at this theory and probably do the study for themselves, and actually kind of look at theropods, look at sauropods, look at stegosaurs, and ankylosaurs, and iguanodontids, hadrosaurs, every family group of dinosaurs that would actually fall into this category of basically would they have lips. And so get that would actually be the most plausible way to actually make sure that this is actually going to happen. Now, this study was actually done in Canada, so basically I would actually, considering that Canada is actually a treasure trove of dinosaur fossils, and I would still say to those scientists is that first of all, with the hypothesis, you need to make sure you have evidence to support this, and also which parts of the skull were you actually studying, because that is actually because that's what I want to know, is that what were you actually studying in the skull? Were you studying like the maxilla, the premaxilla, and the mandibles, or were you looking at different parts of the skull to actually think like, okay, maybe they did have lips? But that's just my questions, is where were you looking for? What were you looking for in terms of lips? But even though I'd still say, show me the evidence, and also see if there, and also show like photographs of like close-up photographs of the bones themselves, of basically where they studied, to actually show evidence, to show like if there was any types of attachments. And you see with the skull of Stan here, you see these teeth are actually very exposed, like really well, and especially where you see this brown colored section right here. That to me is where the gums were actually placed, not lips. It's basically where the gums were actually placed. Especially the gums of the dinosaur are actually going to be very, very deep in tissue, and so basically that would actually be the case of basically that Tyrannosaurus Rex had a huge amount of gums on their teeth, and basically these types of teeth, especially with the black parts actually shown here, were actually the exposed parts, and basically those would actually be the symbols of basically this is a predator. And basically with with like herbivorous dinosaurs that were around like during the time, especially like with Tyrannosaurus Rex's time, like Triceratops or any hadrosaurs. Once they see the teeth, they say that's a predator. Let's actually get away from it. Because if there was lips, they would go like what? Because I would say like that maybe they did know it was a predator, but also basically it's just that would they get confused if basically like of that like, oh, it has lips, so we don't really know what it is. I would actually say that that's just kind of pushing it. But even though I would actually say, show me more evidence. I kept repeating it over and over and over again. I can go on and on and on about saying this. Show us more evidence. Show us more evidence. Run the study again, and or otherwise let us scientists actually look at the study and actually try it for themselves, and basically go like, okay, was this theory plausible? Is this hypothesis plausible? But you see, that's the thing of science is basically once a hypothesis comes out and actually they say like we do have evidence to support this, another scientist actually does the same type of study, and basically what that scientist does is basically go like, okay, this is what the evidence actually says for this hypothesis, but what my evidence actually says is that it's totally different. I'd say that they did not have lips, or otherwise, and basically the scientists that actually conducted the study that created the hypothesis would actually say, no, we do have evidence. It's just that you're actually looking at it a different way than we were. And so that's just kind of how it works. Is basically science is basically about debating, and that's what it's all about, is debate the evidence. And also it's basically is that we come up with new theories all the time. About certain things in science. Especially like in astronomy, biology, chemistry, and physics. All types of sciences actually have really huge debates about certain things that are actually being presented in the evidence. And so there are things that can't be explained, and also there are some stuff that can be explained. That's all what science is about. Is basically we keep going forward of basically what the evidence is actually what the evidence is actually showing us. Some people take it one way, and some others actually take it some other way. That's how science is. It's about debating the evidence and also actually coming up with different hypotheses to actually go forward and actually prove and actually show the evidence that is in these hypotheses. All right, that's it for now. For this extra episode, and basically this Saturday will actually be a special episode, concerning that today actually got a very popular choice, and so pretty much the episode would only contain Lithrinax, and so Lithrinax would actually be the dinosaur that I'll be talking about in this special episode of this Saturday. So stay tuned for the Lithrinax special episode this Saturday. And also you can still send me questions about dinosaurs or any other prehistoric life by emailing me at dinochris71@gmail.com, or let's go on my Facebook page, Prehistoric Facts with Dino Chris. Like the page, you can actually post your questions in the comment section on any Facebook post. Remember, keep your questions short to the point. And also you can follow me on Twitter at CSGRALL. That's my Twitter page. I post pretty cool stuff on there. Take care of the people around you, and also for younger people out there, make sure to listen to your parents, your teachers, and your guardians. Those are the best motivators you could have for good education. It's very important to have a good education, because with a good education, you get a good job in the future. And a quick point right here is basically with some of these extra episodes, I will actually present at least something from my collection, basically either a replica or otherwise a fossil or otherwise a type of rock or mineral. And basically I'll keep doing that for every extra episode that I can get done when I have the time to do an extra episode. Anyway, so that's it for now, and I'll see you guys this Saturday.